One of the keys to understanding Daniel is in knowing that this is a Hebrew prophet writing to the Jews in captivity and afterward. The book of Daniel should be interpreted in the context of the conventions of Hebrew writing and not our own modern way of reading the text. Much of the Bible is actually written in the form of poetry, but it's not rhyme and meter in the modern sense, but thought parallels. These take the form of chiastic structure, recapitulation, and parallelism. The rule of parallel structure is that the writer will say something idiomatically and then say it again more clearly. Or the other way around, he'll use plain speech and then use a figure of speech. This is done throughout the Bible, but especially in the book of Genesis, the poetic books such as Psalms and Proverbs, and then all of the prophets. In a single passage, this is a parallelism, or reverse parallelism, which is known as a chiasm. Parallel structure also appears over longer passages, which is known as recapitulation or chiastic structure. In fact, the two main sections of Daniel 2 through 7 and 8 through 12 are organized in chiastic structure. An example of chiastic structure would be two ideas, A and B together, with variants, A prime and B prime, represented as AB, B prime, A prime, and then adding C, D, E, and so on for each new idea. In a simple chiasm, first concept A is mentioned once, then B twice, then A twice, until the structure ends with a final A. The structure points us to the contrast between two ideas. Genesis has more chiasms than any other book in the Bible. The beginning of Genesis 4, for example, uses the A-B-B-A chiastic structure. This pattern emphasizes the contrast between the two sons of Adam, Abel and Cain. Genesis 4 describes their names, their occupations, and their offering. Now Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain and said, I have acquired a man from the Lord. Then she bore again, this time his brother Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground to the Lord. Abel also brought the firstborn of his flock and of their fat. And the Lord respected Abel and his offering, but he did not respect Cain and his offering. And Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. So here Cain is mentioned first, Abel twice, then Cain twice, and so on. The structure draws attention to the differences of Cain and Abel, pointing out the essential difference in their personalities. The whole book of Daniel is written in a double chiasm. The double chiastic structure also emphasizes the two languages in which the book is written, Hebrew and Aramaic. The first chiasm is written in Aramaic from chapters 2 through 7, following an ABC CBA pattern. Chapter 1 serves as an introduction, then the dream and the vision of chapters 2 and 7 form a recapitulation over the two similar predictions of four world empires, AA. Daniel paints a vivid picture of four world empires with markedly different symbols representing each, and finally being conquered by the kingdom of God. In chapter 2, there's four types of metal making up a statue. In chapter 7, there are four types of beasts. Chapters 3 and 6 also form a thematic or chiastic pair, BB. The casting of three Hebrew children into a fiery furnace and their deliverance by a fourth man walking in the midst of a fire likened to the living Son of God, in chapter 3, is paired with the faith of the older Daniel shutting the mouths of the lions many years later in chapter 6. Then chapters 4 and 5 also form a pair of ideas, CC. The humiliation of King Nebuchadnezzar in chapter 4 is paired with the overthrow and death of his grandson and heir Belshazzar in chapter 5. The second chiasm is in Hebrew from chapters 8 through 12, also using the ABC CBA pattern. The exception is 926D, a break in the center of the pattern, ABCD CBA. Chapter 8 opens with Persia and Greece represented by a ram and a male goat. Persia is the empire that allows the Jews to rebuild the temple. Greece is the empire divided into four kingdoms. Chapter 8 culminates with the tyranny of a king of fierce countenance who shall destroy the mighty and holy people and stand up against the Prince of Princes. Daniel 8:23-25. This is paired with a line of Persian and Greek kings in chapter 11, which is centered around a vile person who sets up the abomination of desolation in the temple, and continues into chapter 12, in which the temple is desecrated once again, this time by the Romans in AD 70. The second pairing is the two intercessory prayers recorded in the opening of chapters 9, 1-24, and 10, or BB. The third pairing is the decree to rebuild Jerusalem in Daniel 9:25, and the decree that Jerusalem is to be destroyed and the temple desecrated in Daniel 9:27. This is CC. At the very center of the CC chiasm is one verse, 9:26, which is the Messiah being cut off, the greatest event in history, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ for the sins of the nations of the whole world. This is D. Viewed in this way, the prophecy of Daniel is the story of the wars of the nations against Jesus Christ, and finally the victory of Messiah the Prince over the kingdoms of this world through the salvation of his people. The book of Daniel is like a pair of books, the first prophetic historical and the second prophetic, or a single book that hinges in the middle. At the outer pairing in the first chiasm is the prophecy of Messiah's kingdom. At the center of the second chiasm is the 70 weeks prophecy that gives the exact timing of the coming of Messiah's kingdom. Both the first and the second chiasm must be interpreted consistently to show that Christ's victorious kingdom would come in the days of these kings, that is, in the days of the Roman Empire. We should consider, too, that even if unintentional, thought parallelisms were part of the Hebrew culture. It was part of their mindset. That is, Westerners are more inclined to think in terms of Greek philosophy. We tend to think more linearly. We see a beginning, a middle, and an end in that order, or premise, argument, conclusion. In ancient thinking, information is often given non-linearly, through circular patterns or recapitulation. Daniel and the Hebrew prophets and their hearers would have understood the conventions of chiasm and parallel structure better and more immediately than we do today. If we don't understand that at the outset and try to interpret the sections of Daniel separately, then we won't get the overall meaning. We'll miss the forest for the trees.